When a Sagittarius stops telling stories, that's when love needs to be saved. There is something that those who have lived beside a Sagittarius for many years may never have truly known. A silent truth, unspoken, without clear shape like a confession, but hidden deep within every quiet gaze. In every breath that stretches long into the late night, when the house has settled into silence and life's worries seem to have gone to sleep. Sagittarius, often seen as strong, joyful, and endlessly eager to explore the world, actually has a part of their heart that has never truly opened to their spouse. Not because they do not love, not because they want to hide something wrong, but because they themselves have never quite found the words precise enough to say it out loud. Love, to a Sagittarius, is never simple. It is a journey, a challenge, a tug of war between the need for freedom and the longing to be deeply loved. And in the journey of marriage, where everything gradually shifts from radiant to stable, from romantic to responsible, from discovery to repetition, Sagittarius starts to feel lost. They still love. They love by staying. They love through silence. They love by constantly wishing peace for their partner. But they cannot clearly express that love. Sometimes, they don't even fully understand their own heart. Over the next 30 minutes, I will take you closer to that inner world. A world few people ever see, but one that is undeniably real. It is the inner voice of Sagittarians who have crossed the halfway point in life, who have experienced marriage not just through smiles but through wounds, through distances that once seemed impossible to bridge, and who have learned to heal through silence. If you are living with a Sagittarius, or if you are a Sagittarius slowly realizing that the distance between you and your partner is growing in quiet ways, stay until the end. You might receive something that helps you not only understand the other person more deeply but also forgive yourself. And if you feel your heart soften with empathy, quietly say or leave a comment, "I am ready to open my heart to heal and love more deeply." That is not just a declaration. It is a way to reconnect with the universal energy that is guiding you toward a better version of yourself and of the relationship you are trying to hold on to. If you find this meaningful, sometimes what breaks a relationship is not betrayal, not arguments, but silence. A kind of silence that is not noisy, not sorrowful, but stretches across the years. And Sagittarius, those who always seem radiant and spirited, are often the souls most prone to falling into that state in marriage. I have read thousands of natal charts and met hundreds of Sagittarians, both men and women. What moves me deeply about them is their beautiful contradiction. They long for freedom, but they are deeply afraid of loneliness. They love to discover new things, yet quietly seek that one person who can understand the fire within them. Someone who doesn't try to hold them back, but who is always the place they can return to. Marriage, to a Sagittarius, is not a binding contract. It is a journey without a map. One in which they must learn to travel across lands called responsibility, compromise, routine, and sometimes, disillusionment. What they do not say, or have never been brave enough to say, is this. There are moments when they fear the very marriage they once joyfully entered is now slowly dimming the light inside them. I remember a Sagittarius man once confided in me after more than 22 years of marriage. He said, "I love my wife. But there are moments when I no longer recognize the man in the mirror. He didn't cheat. He didn't walk away. But he lived quietly in a loneliness that the person beside him couldn't sense." To me, that is the silent tragedy of many Sagittarians. They don't know how to express their mental exhaustion because they are afraid of hurting the ones they love. And so, they choose to endure. But within that endurance, love does not disappear, it only becomes hidden. Once, I read the birth chart of a Sagittarius woman who had been through a marriage that lasted nearly 3 decades. When I asked her what she regretted most, she said, "I wish I had spoken more. I thought he understood." But it turns out we both pretended to be okay for many years. And only when it was too late did we realize we were no longer ourselves. At that moment, I understood. Silence is not empty, it is the thickest wall between two hearts that once loved each other most. And when that wall is built with worry, with fear, and with unmet expectations, it will grow taller and taller, to the point that no one can climb over it. My perspective, after half a lifetime of studying astrology, is that each zodiac sign has a soul lesson. And the soul lesson of Sagittarius is to learn how to stay, to learn how to open up and express love in the language of others. Not just in the ways they are familiar with. Sagittarius often loves through actions, through patience, through unexpected gifts or forgiveness. But sometimes, their partner needs a clear statement. I still love you, or I still need you. Just one sentence like that can dissolve countless misunderstandings. One deep truth I've drawn from all these conversations is this: love cannot be measured by the length of time spent together, but by the truth that can be expressed or not. And for Sagittarius, that is often the greatest challenge. Because they fear that if they speak of their inner confusion, the other person will no longer see them as strong. But do you know something? The very moment a Sagittarius dares to remove the mask of confidence and lets their partner see that they, too, are fragile and in need of a hug, that is when true love begins to heal. The question I often ask Sagittarians is, which version of you do you want your partner to love? The strong one you try to appear as, or the one who is truly trembling inside? Because if you always have to hide the truth, that love has never been complete. And it cannot last. Each of us has our own astrological cycle. When Saturn, the planet of responsibility, passes through the 7th house of Sagittarius, usually after the age of 40, they will go through a period of faith crisis in their relationships. At that time, they begin to ask themselves, am I still living according to my ideals? Does the person beside me still truly understand me? It is a difficult phase but also an opportunity for rebuilding. If Sagittarius is brave enough to share, and if their partner is patient enough to listen, then that is the moment of the deepest healing the universe has set in place. So, if you are a Sagittarius quietly walking through the challenging days of marriage, remember this: you don't always have to be the strong one. Sometimes, the greatest act of love is daring to let the one you love see your vulnerability. And if you are loving a Sagittarius, do not assume they are distant just because they are silent. Maybe they are battling within themselves, searching for a way to say what they've never dared to say. Be patient. Ask them, but do not demand an immediate answer. Because for Sagittarius, everything takes time to be felt and trusted. And with the universe, everything arrives at the right moment, if you truly wait for it with understanding. If you are listening up to this point and feel something stirring in your heart, please do not ignore that feeling. Give yourself the chance to be honest with yourself, honest with the one who lives beside you every day. Leave a comment. I am ready to open my heart to heal and love more deeply. Because that very act of opening up might be the first step in overcoming the wall that has existed for too long. And if you believe in the good, share this video as a gift to someone you love. Who knows? It might be exactly what they need to hear to begin again. From the heart. There are Sagittarians I've met who, when sitting across from me in conversation, would begin with gentle stories about work, children, trips from the past. They often smile. Their eyes still shine like an inner fire that never goes out. But then, all it takes is for me to ask one simple question: are you happy in your current relationship? They go quiet. Their eyes dim, the smile fades, and a long silence begins to fill the room. It is not the silence of anger, nor of specific sadness. It is a kind of spiritual fatigue, what I call the weariness of the soul after traveling too far without anyone understanding that journey. Sagittarius, whether man or woman, carries within them a very unique instinct to roam. Within them, there is always a call from afar, a spiritual sky. A place where they can be truly themselves, not confined by roles. But marriage, especially after many years, tends to box them in. When love gradually shifts into the role of father, mother, provider, keeper of the home, Sagittarius begins to lose a part of their soul they once took great pride in. The painful truth is, they don't blame anyone. They understand that everyone is trying. The spouse is also worrying, saving, maintaining the family. But for Sagittarius, a home cannot just be a place to stay, it must be a place to breathe. To soar in their imagination, and to share their wildest dreams without being judged. My view is this. Sagittarius does not fear responsibility. They fear losing their ideals. They can shoulder burdens. They can sacrifice. But if they are no longer nourished by inspiration, they will gradually become quiet, distant, and seem as though they no longer care. That makes their partner feel abandoned. But the truth is, Sagittarius is living in an inner world where even they have yet to find the way out. Once, in a therapy session, a Sagittarius woman in her 50s told me, "I no longer hope my husband understands me. I just hope I still have enough faith not to hate myself for not being able to tell him the truth." That was a confession that choked me up. Because the truth that very few people speak of is this. In many marriages, we do not only grow distant from each other, we begin to grow distant from ourselves. When a Sagittarius starts to feel they can no longer be themselves in a relationship, they will not react with anger. They will retreat quietly, like a star slowly fading into the night. They will still care for the family. They will still fulfill their roles. They will still smile when needed. But the fire inside them has gone out. And what troubles me most is that sometimes their partner only realizes it when it's too late. When Sagittarius has stopped hoping to be understood. The greatest lesson I have drawn from my astrological journey is this. Sagittarius does not need to be fully understood. They only need to be listened to without judgment. When you ask a Sagittarius how they feel, don't demand an immediate answer. Give them space to sort through their thoughts, because within them, everything is more complex than it appears. Sagittarius is the only zodiac sign that carries the symbol of half human, half beast. It is not just an ancient image, but a soul code. One half is reason reaching for light. The other half is instinct constantly wandering through unnamed emotional realms. If a marriage no longer nurtures both parts, Sagittarius will gradually lose their way. To me, a lasting relationship does not always have to be overflowing with emotions. But it must have empathy. You may not understand every thought of the other person. But you can still allow them to live authentically, to say the things they've been hiding. And to Sagittarius, that is more precious than any material gift. Someone once asked me, "So what should I do when living with a Sagittarius who is growing silent?" My answer is always the same. Don't force them to speak. Give them safe silences. Offer them an evening with no questions, just the two of you sitting together watching the sky. Let them feel that even when they can't express themselves, you are still there, without judgment, without demands. Because when Sagittarius feels safe, they will open up in their own way. With an old story. With a glance. With a song that plays in the night. That is how they say, "I'm still here. I'm just finding my way back." And if you are a Sagittarius, I want you to know this. You don't always have to be strong. You don't always have to smile. You don't always have to be optimistic. You have the right to be tired. You have the right to ask for a hug, for an evening where someone simply listens. And you have the right to be honest with your partner. Because the truth has never hurt a healthy relationship, only silence does that. If what I'm saying feels like it's touching something inside you, let go. Allow your heart to rest. And if you want to begin again, start with something small. Write your partner a line. Or gently touch their hand and say, "I'm still here." Sometimes, something that small can rekindle a fire that has slept for far too long. If this means something to you, if it makes you want to look at your current relationship with a more open heart, write below this video, "I choose to reconnect through understanding." Because only when you dare to reconnect with the truth, with the real you and the real person beside you, can you truly step into a love that is mature, deep, and enduring. And if you know someone who also needs to hear this, share the video. Because the most beautiful gift we can give each other is sometimes just a reminder that you are not alone. And that you always deserve to be loved in the right way. If you have ever loved a Sagittarius, or are currently living with someone born under this sign, you will recognize that they have a very unique kind of loneliness. Not like those who easily express themselves. Not like someone who is hurt by small things. Sagittarius often says nothing. But you will see the change in their eyes, in the way they grow quieter after each argument. Or when they return home without saying a word, just taking off their shoes and staring into the distance. As if they are living somewhere else, an inner world you cannot reach. And then you might think they are indifferent. But the truth is, they are lost in their own emotional world. They don't know how to express it correctly. Because everything inside them is always too vast, too deep, and too conflicted. As an astrologer who has followed the journey of Sagittarius for over half a century, I affirm this. No zodiac sign loves as deeply yet remains as silent as Sagittarius. When a Sagittarius enters marriage, they bring not just their heart, but their life philosophy, their dreams, and their aspirations. They don't look for a house to settle down in, they look for someone to journey with them into the expansion of their inner world. But sadly, over time, real life often wears down those dreams. In the early days, both were happy. Sagittarius shared what they loved, the places they wanted to go, the horizons they wanted to conquer. But then, after a few years, as the burdens of daily life and the arrival of children began to weigh heavy, their partner started to forget what once made Sagittarius shine. And Sagittarius began to learn how to stay silent, just to avoid becoming a bother. I once heard a Sagittarius husband say through tears, "I don't blame her. I just wish, just once, she had asked me if I still dreamed of anything. I wish she had let me tell her about the trip I've been imagining for 5 years. But never said out loud." He didn't blame her. But do you know what broke my heart? It was the moment a Sagittarius no longer hopes to share, it means the fire inside them has gone out. And when the fire of a Sagittarius dies, they don't become cold, they become so quiet that you no longer recognize them. The CO of the word, Sagittarius, is not merely about naming a zodiac sign. It is a whole emotional map, the journey of inner growth for a soul that lives by its ideals. And the most painful thing for Sagittarius is when that ideal no longer has a place to live within the marriage they once trusted with all their heart. In astrology, Sagittarius is the only sign ruled by Jupiter, the planet that represents expansion, faith, greatness, and compassion. But if Jupiter is not nourished, it becomes a barren land where all faith slowly withers. That's when Sagittarius starts to doubt themselves. They begin to ask, did I choose the wrong person, or worse, am I not worthy of the kind of love I once dreamed of? As the partner of a Sagittarius, you may never hear them say those things. But you will feel it. In the emptiness in their eyes when you're too busy to listen. In the way they sit alone for hours without turning on the TV. Without picking up their phone, just sitting there, as if trying to find themselves again. And if you're sensitive enough, you'll realize that the moment they need you most is not when they shout in anger, but when they stop arguing altogether. Sagittarius only goes silent when they are enduring something too heavy to carry, and they no longer believe you could understand. My personal view is this. To have a lasting marriage with a Sagittarius, two elements are essential. First, space, so they can continue to grow without feeling suffocated. Second, spiritual encouragement, not in the form of material gifts, but through the simple question, do you still have dreams? That question, which may seem so simple, can become the breath of wind that revives the fire within a Sagittarius, the fire that once burned for you, but is now flickering from being forgotten. The lesson I have drawn from all the stories I've heard is this. Sagittarius never needs perfection. They only need someone patient enough to listen to the things that seem unimportant. A dream, a small plan, a quiet longing, those are their life's fuel. And if their partner no longer sees them as important, Sagittarius begins to feel they themselves are no longer meaningful. The powerful message I want to leave with you today is this. Ask your Sagittarius partner again what they still want from life. Don't wait until they stop answering altogether. Don't wait until they become someone who lives in the same house but whose soul has already gone elsewhere. Because by then, no matter how much you love them, they will no longer feel it. They need you now, when everything can still be saved by one honest conversation. And if you are a Sagittarius hearing these words, I pray that you will have the courage to speak your dreams. Believe that you deserve to live a life filled with meaning. Believe that your partner, if they still love you, will be willing to listen. If you open your heart. Leave a comment below this video. I choose to live with a heart full of dreams. Because when you say that, you're sending a powerful signal to the universe that you will no longer settle for silence. You want connection. You want love. You want to be understood. And maybe, just maybe, one honest sentence today could be the first step toward healing something that has seemed broken for many years. I still remember a Sagittarius woman I counseled many years ago. She had been in a marriage that lasted more than 3 decades. With the man she called my best friend, but no longer my lover. She said every day was filled with care. Meals were prepared. The children and grandchildren were around. There were affectionate glances. But what she missed the most was soul. I can't pinpoint exactly what's missing. I just know I stopped telling him my dreams. And I no longer hear his either. Those words, spoken softly like a whisper, stayed with me for many nights. Because they capture the essence of so many relationships after many years together, especially when one of them is a Sagittarius. For Sagittarius, love is not just about presence. It's about spiritual companionship. They need to know that they are still inspired by their partner. That the other person still has things they want to live for. To share, to discover together. When the relationship becomes only habit, only roles of parenting, housekeeping, or financial support, Sagittarius begins to feel suffocated. They will not blame anyone, they understand that everyone is trying. But they will withdraw inward. Slowly, they learn to stay silent, just to avoid disturbing the peace their partner is trying to preserve. But that very peace ends up driving them away from themselves. My personal view is that Sagittarius is one of the most honest zodiac signs, but their honesty doesn't always come through words. It comes through the energy they bring. When they're excited to tell a story. When their eyes light up because of an idea. When they take your hand and ask, if we could go somewhere tomorrow, where would you want to go? That's when you know Sagittarius is still connecting with you through their soul. But when you see them only smile politely, nod without depth, or avoid conversations about the future, you should understand that the bond between you is fading. They don't blame you. But they are hurting, in a very quiet way. Sometimes, we confuse peace with fulfillment. For Sagittarius, peace is not the destination. They need something deeper, a harmony in life's vision. Sagittarius needs to know that their partner still has ideals, still longs to live fully, still has unfinished dreams. Otherwise, they will feel like a boat anchored at the dock, while their heart still yearns for the ocean. And so they don't set sail. But they don't truly stay either. They live quietly between two shores, duty and desire. What saddens me most is this. Many partners of Sagittarius only realize they've lost the connection when it's too late. When Sagittarius stops telling stories, stops dreaming, stops inviting their partner to do new things together. By then, reigniting the flame requires more than an apology or a bouquet. It requires rebirth. A rebirth that begins when both people sit down together and ask, what have we not said to each other in all these years? Not to blame, but to return. To remember why they once chose each other in a vast world. For Sagittarius, their ruling planet, Jupiter, represents not only expansion but also faith. When that faith is wounded, Sagittarius becomes lost. But if someone can rekindle that faith, with a sincere act, with a heartfelt confession, they will return to a love even deeper than before. Because Sagittarius, once they've overcome their pain, no longer loves shallowly. They love with maturity, with empathy, with silent yet steadfast embraces. I often tell couples where one is a Sagittarius, tell each other a dream. It sounds simple, but try doing that after 20 years of marriage, and you'll find it's not so easy. But in that moment, you'll realize, the love is still there, it's just waiting to be remembered. A Sagittarius woman once came back to me for therapy after a year of healing with her husband. She smiled and said, we didn't go anywhere far. But every night, we share one thing the other didn't know before. And I realized, he still has parts yet to be discovered. Just like me. That sentence is the powerful point I want to leave with you today. Love doesn't disappear. It just needs a key to reopen a door once closed. And if you're listening to this, if you feel your heart stirring, even just a little, then believe this. You still have a chance. You can still sit down, look that person in the eyes, and gently ask, can we start again with a conversation? Just one act of initiative. One moment of courage to say what you've kept inside for too long. That is already the first step toward healing. If this brings a light within you, comment below the video, I'm ready to reignite the flame in my love. Because when you choose to reignite it, you are telling the universe that you cherish this relationship. And if you think this video might be a gift to someone, a Sagittarius, or someone living with a Sagittarius, share it. Because who knows, one small click to share today could bring light back into a heart that needs it. When we talk about honesty in marriage, people often think it means not hiding specific things like secrets, affairs, or lies. But for a Sagittarius, honesty sometimes lies in whether they are allowed to be themselves in the relationship. There are many Sagittarians who haven't cheated, haven't left their families, haven't let go of their partners. But many times, they have quietly packed away the most important parts of their soul and placed them in a hidden corner. A place no one can reach, not even the person they sleep beside each night. And that is the unspoken truth. A truth with no shape, no words, no journal entry, no voice. Only sensed through long silences in their eyes, through the times they almost speak but don't. Through the nights they sit on the porch, gazing at the sky and praying for something only they know. I once asked a Sagittarius man, after 25 years of marriage, what he regretted most. He said, I didn't speak about my little sadnesses, because I thought they didn't matter. But now I realize, those little things I kept inside became distance. And now I don't know where to begin again. That was a confession full of awareness. And I know many of us have felt the same, especially those born under Sagittarius. We stay silent to protect the other person. We stay silent because we think we're strong. We stay silent because we're afraid that speaking up will ruin the stability we have. But we forget this. Love doesn't ask us to endure, it asks us to share. For Sagittarius, sharing isn't just telling stories. It is a journey to open the inner self. And to do that, they must feel safe. They must feel that their partner still listens not just with ears, but with the heart. One of the most subtle things I've observed about Sagittarius over the decades is this. They can forgive easily. But they cannot forget the feeling of being lost in their own home. And when that feeling repeats often enough, they begin to live a different life, a life without you. Even though you are still beside them every day. If you're listening and you're a Sagittarius, I want to tell you this. You don't have to keep silent anymore. You don't have to always be the optimistic one, the cheerful one, the one who bears everything for peace. You have the right to be vulnerable. You have the right to say you're tired, that you need to be heard, that you need to be understood. And if you're living with a Sagittarius, please don't mistake their silence for indifference. In that silence lies an ocean of unnamed emotions, and if you're patient enough to reach into it, you will find a beautiful love waiting to awaken. The most profound insight I've gained from years of observing relationships involving Sagittarius is this. Never think you fully understand them. Because Sagittarius is a soul in constant growth, today they're a source of inspiration. Tomorrow they may be a wanderer in their own heart. What they need most is not advice, but unconditional companionship. A gentle handhold. A hug that lasts longer than usual. A look that tells them they're allowed to be who they are, no explanations needed. I believe that the universe brings souls together for reasons far greater than we realize. If you and a Sagittarius chose each other out of millions, that connection is not random. It's part of a spiritual plan. And if that relationship is cooling now, please remember. Everything can begin again. Not with grand gestures, but with sincerity. Like how a small flame can warm an entire winter, if you tend to it each day. The powerful point I want to leave with you today is not advice, but a prayer. I pray that you, the Sagittarius who longs to live fully, will find your voice again in love. And I pray that the one living with Sagittarius will have enough heart to hear that voice before it's drowned out by the silence that has lasted too long. And if you are still here, still listening to the very last moment of this journey, it means your heart is still open. There is still hope, still love, still faith in healing. Comment below the video. I choose to love again through understanding. As a prayer to the universe that you still believe in love. Even after the deepest wounds. Because sometimes, love doesn't need to begin with something new, it only needs to be rekindled from where we once lost each other. If this resonates with you, share this video with someone you love. Someone who has stayed silent for too long. Someone who might be living in loneliness they can't name. Because perhaps, what you share today, is the doorway for a Sagittarius soul to find their way back to love.